Mike here. Welcome back to Grampie's Workshop. I'm glad you dropped in today. I got the Massey Ferguson GC2300 awesome tractor here in the shop because I'm doing a little bit of spring maintenance to it. Just checking a few things over here and there. Like one of the things on my level indicator here for the rear 3-point hitch. Because there's no draft control in this, it's nice to have this level indicator. But all my markings were wore off it, so I just remarked them there. And they don't mean anything specific other than they're relative to how high or low the 3-point would be. So that comes in handy, when you're using the back blade, or like right now I still have the snowblower on, comes in handy when I'm setting the level of the snowblower. So yeah, I remarked that, a few little things like that, check the pressure of the tires, blah, 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 blah. All that boring maintenance stuff. Another job that I'd really like to get done is, a long time ago, a couple of years, maybe 3 years ago, I put a rear view camera on my tractor. And this is the camera right here. Now that rear view camera didn't really work out as well as I thought it was going to. I have to be honest with that. It's hard, for me at least, it's hard to get depth perception with it. And also, if it's real sunny out, when you're backing up into the sun, there's a glare comes off the camera. And when you're driving forward, the sun's shining in on your face. It's hard to make out what's on the screen in the cab. So yeah, it didn't really work out quite as well as I thought, but it does come in handy. I do use it when I'm backing up, but I was kind of hoping I'd be able to use it when I was running the snowblower, just sit facing forward in the cab and watch the monitor and be able to snowblow. But I never felt comfortable doing that, so anyway, I didn't do it. But one of the other problems I had with this camera was the way I mounted it. It was just a temporary thing, or at the time I thought it was permanent, but the more I used it, the more I said this is just temporary. I just fastened with this nut and bolt here a piece of flat bar on this bracket that's on the ROPS. And if you see that, it vibrates. It vibrates a lot, in fact. So I'd like to come up, I like the idea of the camera, but I'd like to come up with a better mount to maybe eliminate some of that vibration. So that's what we're going to try and do today, is come up with a better mount for my rear view camera on the tractor. So when I first mounted my camera on the back of the tractor, I played around with a lot of different positions, because I wanted it to be multi-purpose, of course, this camera. I wanted it to be a rear view mirror for when I'm driving the tractor. I also wanted it to be eyes in the back of my head so I could see the implement when I'm using it. It works not bad as a rear view mirror, but to monitor the implement in operation didn't work out so good for that. So I don't use it much for that. But anyhow, I tried mounting it down low to see if that would work better, to see the implement. Well, you could see the implement really well, but as a rear view mirror then, it was obstructed by what was on the back of the tractor, so that didn't work too good. I thought of putting it up here in the cab, but I thought, maybe dangerous. It might get hit by something, like low branches or something. Plus, it was great then for a rear view mirror, because it could see a mile down the road, but you couldn't see the implement, so that didn't work. And because this is the ROPS system, this gray square tube here, that's the ROPS system. I didn't want to start drilling holes into that or welding brackets to it or anything like that, because that would maybe compromise the integrity of the ROPS, and I don't want to do that because the ROPS is a good safety feature on the tractor. So I ended up, these brackets here are part of the system that holds the cab in place. So I just ended up mounting a bracket, same as I did for this light, and for this little bracket here to hold my 3-point depth indicator. Just mounted that to those brackets. I'm going to disconnect that. I'd like to get a piece of steel that goes from this bracket to this bracket, and then, in fact, this is the steel I'm going to use right here, piece of square tubing. That will go from there to there, and I can remount these brackets to hold the light, and I can attach the camera on this bar. You might think, well, that's going to obstruct your natural vision when you turn around and look out the back window, and it will, but I think it wouldn't be so bad. This square tubing, by the way, this came from my scrap metal bin, not my scrap wood bin, but my scrap metal bin. A while ago we bought a metal top gazebo for on the deck 3-4 years ago, and it came in cartons, and the cartons were formed using this square tubing, a whole bunch of pieces of this. So, I never threw it out. So I'm going to cut up a piece of it, see if I can make a camera holder bracket out of it. So I've determined the length of this bracket, and or this piece of square tubing. We're going to cut it off here. So I just moved down the line from my vise. I'm just going to clean the end of this up so that there's no sharp edges. Okay, now with that end cleaned up, I need to drill a couple of 1/4-inch holes in here for the bolts so I can mount that on the brackets on the back of the tractor. So I have my center punch marked here for these 2 holes, one on either end that I have to make. I'm going to start with a small bit and then go to the bigger one. So I've got a 5/16 bit. And as always, I'll tidy up these holes at the grinder. Okay, I'm going to paint this now. I get the 2 holes drilled in it. Just want to paint it before I try it on the tractor. So just have black gloss paint. There's lots of overspray from spraying, so I'm going to use the Gazman dust filter. Alright, we're just going to let that dry, see if it needs another coat, and if it does, we'll do that. Then we'll try installing it, put everything back on, and find a location for the camera. Well, it's the next day now, and my little bracket here is all painted up, looks good. Didn't turn out too bad, I like it. We're going to set this right in here. Yeah, something like that. And hopefully these bolts will fit on in here. And put this one over here. There we go. We can take our 3-point indicator. Put that on there. There. That's pretty straight. Now we'll do the same over here, but over here we only need to put this bracket for the light on here, not the bracket with the camera. Have to remember that. That ought to hold that. And then we'll have to take the camera off of this bracket and we'll mount it either underneath here or on top. I'll have to figure that one out. So we'll be just taking this nut and bolt off of here to get the camera off the bracket. Okay, so there was 2 screws on either side of this bracket holding the camera. So I'm just taking those screws out now to get the camera out of the bracket. There's the camera free, because I want to locate this bracket here, right? Or maybe here. So I've done exhaustive studies and research and determined that I like the camera to be underneath this bar. Don't ask me why. So anyway, here's the bracket. I made a mark right here. It's hard to see, but it's in the center of the bracket. So I'm going to center that center of the bar. I want to center the bracket on that. And then I've got a little clamp here. We'll just put that clamp on it like that. Alright, now I'm going to get a couple of self-tapping screws and just boom those in there. So I've got some 1/2-inch Robertson head screws here, self-tapping and self-drilling too, actually. Pretty good, eh? So we're going to put those right here. And I backed them up with a washer too. And then this one will go on this side. Now, to get the camera back in there, I'm going to have to lengthen my wire, but that's not a big deal because I got about 1.5 miles of it coiled up inside the cab. So this should go right here. That allows it to pivot there, right? And then there's the tiniest of those little screws, Robert or Phillips head, that go to hold it in place. And lucky for me, I have a little Phillips head magnetic screwdriver. In fact, I think this screwdriver came with the camera. Let's turn the tractor on and just see how good I can see out of that. Excuse the noise of the fuel pump, but I can see through this window to my screen to see where this is aiming. So that doesn't look too bad. I can see probably at eye height, and then I can see most of this attachment. So I think I'll tighten her up right there, and we'll try it. And if it's no good, hey, we'll change it. Okay, so that should hold that a lot better. It certainly doesn't vibrate as much. I'm banging on that with my hand, and I don't see the picture shimmying and shaking in the tractor cab. So we're going to try that and see how it works. So now we just put a couple of tie wraps on here to hold that wire in place. I think that's got her. And I moved this light a little bit, so I'll have to check the alignment of that light, but that's no big deal. And we'll make sure that that camera's working okay. And our flag holder is back in place, and the flag pole is pretty straight. So I think we're done with this job. So if you remember a couple of videos ago there, I installed this filter system, my Gazman Air Filter. And at the time, I had some comments, plus I was concerned too, of how well this filter was going to collect the dust particles in the shop. So I have no scientific way of testing that, but all I can do is tell you that the shop is less dusty. You know, sometimes when I'm sanding or grinding or whatever, you can look up at the lights and you'll see a little bit of like a haze around the lights because that's the dust in the air. Well, I don't see that as much now. I mean, there's still some haze around the lights, don't get me wrong. This is not a pristine, clean atmosphere in here because of my filter, but it's certainly not as bad. When I was painting that little cross member to put my camera on, right, I had turned my filter around this way, and I was painting right here behind me. So, you know, a lot of the paint spray was heading over this way and getting sucked right into the filter. So I kind of expected that it would filter it, and it did a really good job. Because if you can look, it's really black here from the black paint, except for this middle part. And that's where the fan motor is, so of course no air comes through there. But did it collect any other dust, or was it just collecting paint? So I was just checking. I installed the Gazman dust filter. I built it on the 4th of April, and today's the 24th of April, so that was 20 days ago, right? So it's been in service for 20 days. During that time, I did a lot of sawing on the saw, which my dust collector collects most of that sawdust, but it also puts dust particles into the air. I made a couple of doors here for my workbench, plus the 2 long doors to enclose the electrical panel. A lot of sawing and cutting and fitting on those, a lot of cutting out for the half lap joints. So lots of sawdust in the air. And like I say, the bulk of that was going to be captured by my dust collector, but the dust filter was going to collect the other dust that's in the air. Also, those cabinet doors for the electrical panel, I put some crack filling compound on those to kind of sweeten up the stiles and the rails, and I sanded that. And you know what crack filling dust is like, it goes everywhere. And then I also, when I painted the cross member for the camera over there in the tractor, I had black spray paint, so that's why it's black. But if you look at the back of it, I don't know, it looks dirty, but let's just tap it here on the table and see how much dust comes out of it. Okay, I don't know how well that showed up on camera, but there's a lot of dust. Yeah, look at that. If I tap it out here hard with my hand, look at that. I hope you can see that. A lot of dust. So I'd say these are MERV 8 filters, only 1 inch thick, and they're doing a good job. They're collecting the dust in the shop. Now putting it all back in the shop doing this, but anyways, I think that's the end of this filter. Its life is over. I have another one. I'm going to install that. So I'll get my other filter here. Alright, yeah, the Gazman filter. The Gazman dust filter. She works. So we got the camera mounted here. I think it's a lot more solid, so they'll be cutting down on the vibration. As I use the tractor, I can tweak the positioning of it to make sure that it's giving me the best view of what I want to see out the back here. And we checked out the Gazman, did a good test on that Gazman filter with the black paint, plus collecting the dust from the other little projects. So the Gazman Air Filter is a success too. So hey, not a bad day in the shop. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, thumbs up me, leave me some comments. Have a great week, folks, wherever you are. We'll talk to you soon.